Our annual speaker series started in the early 2000s, but just to give you a sense of it, a recent sense of it, we hosted Cynthia Haynes and Gregory Ulmer in 2008, Lisa Maruca, Michael Joyce, and Cynthia Self in 2009, Dave Perry in 2010, Paul Miller, aka DJ Spooky, in 2011, and Barbara Biesecker, Joshua Gunn, and Alex Reed last year. This year we thought it'd be productive to invite people outside of UT to come join in on the fun remotely. So the Rhetoric Society of America agreed, and they're sponsoring this event as their second annual graduate student webinar. So we'll be joined today by various guests from around the country logging in through Google Hangouts and Twitter. Our distinguished speaker will be introduced in just a moment by Trevor Hoag, an ABD in our rhetoric concentration here and an assistant director in the lab. But let me thank just a few people first. This event would not happen every year if it weren't for the really extraordinary team of humans who literally run the place. So thank you big time to Will Burdett, the program coordinator, Hampton Finger, the systems administrator, Megan Giamfanga, Kate Blauk, Marjorie Foley, and Trevor, our assistant directors. I feel very blessed to get to work with each of you, and I'm very grateful for the way that you make me look so good so consistently. Thanks also to the Department of Rhetoric and Writing, the Department of English, and the College of Liberal Arts, each of which supports the lab in most every way imaginable. And thank you, of course, to our distinguished speaker, and to you for coming out today. This will be fun. Trevor.
All right. Bonjour, everyone. Welcome, and thank you all for coming out to the lab's annual speaker event. Today, it's my honor, as well as my pleasure, to introduce our speaker. But before I tell you about how awesome she is, I just want to say a few words about the theme that she'll be presenting on, which is the question, and I highlight the word question here on purpose, of digital activism. I also want to take this opportunity to point out that digital activism is the theme of the DWRL's in-house electronic journal, Currents. And speaking of Currents and its theme, I think that the journal's call for papers this year so nicely encapsulates an introduction to thinking about this question of digital activism and tactical media that I thought I would just read from it to kind of get our wheels turned about some of the questions that we might want to engage today. So here we go. Social media technologies like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, text messaging, and other mobile blogging programs have recently been used to share information between activists around the world. From the Arab Spring to the Occupy movement, Web Roots campaigns have seen many successes, while information sharing hacktivists like WikiLeaks and Anonymous have demonstrated the potential value of digital media technology in exposing institutional malfeasance. But while many tout the value of digital activism for promoting social and political change, others remain skeptical. Some, for example, argue that digital technology fails to generate the actions and social conditions necessary to produce stable communities or meaningful change. And many debate whether online discussions truly allow for greater understanding of diverse voices or merely draw us into echo chambers of increasingly like-minded and even perhaps extremist groups. Some note digital media is employed not only by groups seeking the greater good, but also by terrorist organizations and hate groups. Meanwhile, the ethics and legality of hacktivism remain unclear. Along with these new issues raised by social media, the perennial question or problem of access remains. If digital media technologies become the favored means of promoting and participating in causes, then what of those without the capacity to engage with these technologies? And finally, what do these debates suggest for the future of pedagogy and scholarship regarding digital literacies? In what ways might pedagogy and scholarship be reimagined or retooled in response to the questions raised here in order to shape the next generation of digital activism? Fortunately, we have someone with us today who's both thought a lot about and written a lot about many of these questions, and who I'm sure will help us to begin figuring them out, Dr. Rita Raley. Dr. Raley is an associate professor of English at the University of California, Santa Barbara, as well as currently holding a visiting appointment at the University of New York. Her interests lie at the intersections of digital media and humanist inquiry, with particular emphasis on cultural critique, artistic practices, and language. She's the author of the book Tactical Media, that explores the relationship between new media art and activism in relation to neoliberal globalization, as well as being a co-editor of the Electronic Literature Collection, Volume 2. She's published multiple articles and book chapters on mobile and local media, digital poetics, interventionist media arts practices, and global English. She directs the Literature and Culture of Information specialization at UCSB and has held multiple fellowship, teaching, and writing appointments at highly respected institutions. So please join me in giving her a very warm welcome.
So I'm just going to make a few prefatory remarks and then check the acoustics and the optics. So let me first start by thanking you, Trevor, for that really generous introduction. Thank you to Diane and everyone else in the lab for the invitation. I'm really pleased to be here. It's been a great day so far, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you more this afternoon. So one other prefatory remark has to do with my title, the full title of which was From Creative Cloning to Where Next? And I'm going to retain where next, but only as a reference in the last sentence of my paper. So I just showcase it here. It was a sort of thought experiment / persuasive game, really just more of a performance from Molly Industria. It was a parody of security exercises, a parody of the modeling of crisis and catastrophe, of the sort that you see in briefs like Expecting the Unexpected, right? So one could do with this topic is to think also about ARGs, which I mentioned because I know at least one of you is thinking about these things. ARGs that speculate on potential futures, like world without oil, for instance. We can perhaps take that up later. The first question one might be inclined to ask of tactical media in early 2013 is this: how, in the wake of Occupy movements, and Occupy the political project, are we to think about socially engaged practices that are resolutely, in critical art ensembles terms, situational, ephemeral, and self-terminating? How are we to think about the significance of asymmetric interventions manifested in hacktivism, in networked art, and in performance in relation to occupation, the spatio-temporal horizon of which, both in name and in practice, is markedly different from these more immediate events, with an operational field circumscribed as the next 5 minutes? How, further, are we to think about tactical media in the wake of Spain's 15M movement, anti-austerity strikes, the so-termed Arab Spring, strike debt, and student protests happily too widespread to enumerate here? In other words, in the wake of all of the insurrectionary and oppositional struggles that have erupted in this decade, erupted in the sense of having seemed to capture the global political imagination. This is not to suggest commensurability or equivalence among all of these insurrectionary movements, from the Arab Spring to Athens, from Occupy Wall Street to Moscow. But it is more than clear that long after CAE declared the streets as dead capital in their terms, even in ruins, and the traditional organizational models of political activism outdated, the streets are not so easily dismissed, even as their latent possibilities are commodified and insistently reduced to the calculable metrics of programmatic action, the actions of the protester times Person of the Year in 2011. Such a distinction between physical and information infrastructures is untenable, however. Tactical media has been particularly adept at taking advantage of the flexibility, instantaneous communication, and flash mobilization that networked and programmable media has made possible. So, by any media necessary, certainly, but its predominant techniques have been modding, hacking, reverse engineering, creative cloning, DDoS attacks, digital hijacks, and counter-gaming. But anonymous and hacktivists played a significant role in the uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt, maintaining internet connections, streaming live video of brutal attacks on citizens, and relaying information through Twitter. So too, the Occupy movements have variously availed themselves of the techniques and tools of social networking, the postal system, and face-to-face communication, with organizers often moving from camp to camp within a particular geographic region. If protest has become amorphous in the analysis of these divergent movements and events, demands have been equally so, at least insofar as they have consistently been misrecognized as such. Demands are blueprints. They rely upon a teleological structure that either culminates or fails to culminate in a mystified, spectacular event. They instrumentalize, and they aim to manage the future. Here are the precise demands we would like met, after which point we can consider the matter to be settled. The power of the Occupy movements has arguably been exactly this evasion, whether by accident or design, of the demand to delineate demands. An important point of continuity between the present and tactical media as a particular art activist project. Critical Art Ensemble, in answer to the question, what does your art change, simply replied, we have no way to measure outcome. It is entirely apposite, then, that the tactical media archive be living, as it's titled, be mutable, open to discursive reframing, the continuous collection of materials working against a deadening fixity. Tactical media as an institutional and a discursive entity has a particular history, and it's often been conceptualized not as a movement, but as a set of tactics, tools, and techniques that would inform a movement. It resists codification both at the level of theory and of practicality. That is, the temporal scale and diversity of the sheer number of artists and interventions that might plausibly be tagged as tactical, from the Barbie Liberation Organization to the development of mobile labs and alternative networks and infrastructures such as Wi-Fi Bedouin, makes for a rather unwieldy taxonomy. Eric Klutenberg has suggested that, quote, more sophisticated cartographies would be necessary to begin charting the intensely hybridized landscape of today. And indeed, no one rubric can precisely account for both a visualization of petropolitics, as in this example, and contestational robotics, such as low drone. As is clear from recent exhibitions and catalogs that eschew tactical media in name, but embrace it as a concept and a mode of positioning, the variety of work that could be so classified stretches the descriptive category to a kind of limit. But it is precisely this abstraction, one that maintains a link, albeit flexible and dynamic, to the concrete specificities of circumstance that makes it cohere. Abstraction makes it possible to articulate temporary, non-essential commonalities among disparate projects. The very act of categorization might seem on the face of it to stabilize and naturalize tactical media as a monolithic entity, which would be fundamentally at odds with its ideological investments in ephemerality and plasticity. And to categorize, of course, is to systematize a rendering calculable in the process of rendering visible, anathema for practitioners who adopt tactics of opacity and invisibility for the very purpose of rendering themselves non-available to administrative management. But the category of the tactical, however indistinct, does serve to make visible a diverse and dispersed body of artistic practices that might otherwise not be formalizable as political critique. Recognition does not entail the establishment of the ontological truth of things. It is not about what is and what is not properly tactical media. It does not circumscribe or mandate. Interventions are not built to specifications that foreclose on the possibility of diversion and improvisation. Its use is rather than paradoxically strategic. Tactical media can be appreciated within different institutions and discourses. As a descriptor, it facilitates the recognition of continuing lines of effort in creative production in the service of engaging a public with reflective understandings of systemic politics. It's something around which to mobilize and around which communities can form through the identification of shared investments. Let us then take seriously the slogan, "Tactical media is dead, long live tactical media," and regard it in terms of potentiality, in terms of what worlds it might make possible, worlds not produced as fixed objects, but rather experienced as they come into existence.